Welcome to Chamber Live, a virtual federal town hall edition with the Honorable Mona Fortier, Minister of Middle Class Prosperity and Associate Minister of Finance. My name is Neil Milner, and I am the second Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the Greater Sudbury Chamber of Commerce. Every business in our community is heavily impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and is also subject to rapidly changing government legislation and support mechanisms as they are announced. Decisions made by our government are critical for the ongoing future success of our local businesses. When the Chamber engages with elected officials, it provides our members with the opportunity to speak to government directly. I would like to thank Minister Mona Fortier, Sudbury MP Paul Lefebvre, and Nickel Belt MP Mark Serre for being here with us virtually today. Welcome all.
Thank you.
Today's Chamber Live will progress as follows. We'll hear some opening remarks from both Mark Serre and Paul Lefebvre. I will then introduce Minister Fortier, who will then begin her remarks. To the side of your screen, you will see a Q&A box. Please enter your questions during today's session, and we will do our best to direct all questions to the Minister. Please note all Chamber Lives are recorded and cataloged on our website at thesudburychamber.ca under Resources, should anyone want to review the Town Hall. I will now turn to Nickel Belt MP Mark Serre for some brief opening remarks. Then we'll hear from Sudbury MP Paul Lefebvre.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. It's Mark Serre, MP for Nickel Belt. Obviously, thanking the Chamber for hosting this the second Town Hall there in 2 weeks. Also, I just want to take the opportunity quickly, today's a day of National Mourning, to honor Canadians that have lost their lives at the workplace on injuries or their lives, remembering our loved ones and family members. So just want to take that opportunity. Obviously, thank you so much for Minister Mona Fortier for your time today, for your hard work in Ottawa, and for answering questions today with the Chamber members. And obviously with Paul Lefebvre, my colleague, we work closely together with the Chamber and the members to make sure that your business, your voices are heard in Ottawa. So again, thank you for all the businesses that are here today, large and small, on this virtual, trying to get input and questions to all of you. And thank you for what you've done over the last few weeks to Paul and I's office, because those changes, we've heard those changes and we brought them forward to Mona and the team. And Mona will explain a bit the changes that have happened over the last 2 weeks, the feedback that you've been giving to us. So thank you so much for being here. And obviously, we're looking forward to your questions and to Mona answering them. And so go ahead, Paul Lefebvre, my colleague and team member here in Nickel Belt, Greater Sudbury, for all your work. Paul, go ahead. Thank you.
Merci, Mark. Guys, it's always a pleasure to be here. And I know we talked about 2 weeks ago, but very excited to have Minister Fortier with us. I want to, as well as Mark said, thank the Chamber for doing this and your advocacy. I've been talking to business owners on a daily basis, hearing from you, and certainly relaying those messages back and those concerns back to ministers such as Mona. I've been talking to Mona almost on a daily basis to feed that back to the team. I have to really thank Mona and the government to really be responsive to our calls and certainly to our concerns. So our voices are being heard, and I think we see that with the numerous different packages and the different policies that have been set forward to help Canadians and certainly to help business owners as well. So again, very excited to be here. And as Mark said, today's a day of mourning. At 10 o'clock, we'll be joining that event virtually as well. And so, and I want to thank the people that are putting that on as well. But I'm excited to hear obviously your questions and your concerns so that the minister can hear from people from the Greater Sudbury area. Very thrilled to be here. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mark and Paul. I'd now like to introduce the Honorable Mona Fortier, Minister Fortier of Middle Class Prosperity and Associate Minister of Finance. Elected in 2017, the Honorable Mona Fortier is the first female member of Parliament for Ottawa-Vanier. Minister Fortier has always believed that she can best serve her community by getting involved in taking action. Her expertise covers the areas of healthcare, education, job creation, and francophone affairs. Minister Fortier is focused on making life more affordable for Canadians, protecting the environment, and helping businesses prosper. She is a strong advocate for linguistic duality and always searches for the right balance between prosperity and social justice. As a mother of three, a University of Ottawa graduate, a community leader and entrepreneur, Minister Fortier knows that it is important to come together with an ambitious plan to build stronger and better communities while growing the middle class. Minister Fortier.
Thank you, Neil, for that introduction. Et merci de m'avoir invité aujourd'hui. Thank you for the invitation to speak and to hear you today. Neil, again, I want to thank you not only for the introduction, but for the fact that the Sudbury Chamber of Commerce is hosting and leading this very important town hall. It is very important for me and to our entire government that we listen to businesses across the country, including the over 1,000 small and medium businesses that are members of the chamber here in Sudbury. It is important that we answer your questions and also take into consideration your ideas to make this better. Leaders like Paul and Mark, Sudbury Chamber CEO Debbie Nicholson, Mayor Bigger, and business owners and workers across the country have helped shape our response to this crisis. And before we begin, I do want to also acknowledge that today is the International Day of Mourning. As my colleagues have mentioned before me, I know many of you will be joining Sudbury's virtual ceremony to recognize the day when our town hall concludes. Every year on this day, we pause to pay our respect and remember the thousands of workers who have been killed, injured, or suffered illness as a result of work-related incidents. This takes on a new meaning in the context of COVID-19. Our government will continue to work with unions and employers to protect the workers our communities have relied on throughout this crisis. Nous sommes très reconnaissants aux syndicats et aux employeurs qui ont contribué à rendre les lieux de travail plus sûrs à travers le pays. I also want to acknowledge the tragic events in Nova Scotia last week. While that may seem far away from Sudbury, we are all connected, and I know Canadians are mourning coast to coast to coast. My heart goes out to the friends and families of victims at this time. Et je suis certaine que vous conviendrez tous que nous nous trouvons dans une période de crise sans précédent. Nous luttons contre les impacts sanitaires, sociaux et économiques de la pandémie de la COVID-19. Nous, au gouvernement, sommes très conscients que les entreprises canadiennes et leurs travailleurs souffrent depuis le début de cette période difficile. Tous les secteurs de l'économie continuent d'être touchés par la COVID-19. C'est pour ça que nous agissons très vite pour aider le plus de Canadiens possible, le plus de travailleurs possible et le plus rapidement possible. We know that due to the severe impacts of this pandemic, businesses need help to keep more workers employed so that Canadians don't have to choose between keeping food on the table and paying their bills. Now, our government's approach to respond to this unprecedented crisis was based on 3 steps. First, we are ensuring that health and safety of all Canadians is at the heart of everything we do. Secondly, we are working to ensure everyone is protected and nobody falls through the cracks of our safety net. We have introduced measures to address the needs of vulnerable Canadians, from students to low-income essential workers. Third, we are putting in place emergency economic measures to address the real needs of business owners, not-for-profits, charities, and workers across the country. We are working to find solutions for all Canadians. That means taking a Made in Canada approach in our procurement efforts, as well as in our ways of planning for recovery. We are rethinking the ways our country and the world do business. And over the last few weeks, we have announced a series of broad economy-wide supports as part of Canada's COVID-19 economic response plan. These historic measures have been designed, developed, and delivered directly to Canadians in record time. And I want to recognize the hard work of the public servants who have been working 24/7 to make this possible. Through this plan, we're providing more than $100 billion in direct support, $85 billion in liquidity support through income tax, GST, and custom duty payment deferrals, and over $580 billion in additional credit and liquidity support. Now, the new Canada Emergency Response Benefit, we call it the CERB, provides $2,000 every month for up to 16 weeks to workers who have stopped working as a result of the pandemic. Over 7.2 million Canadians have already received their benefits, totaling over $24.25 billion that have been distributed. La nouvelle prestation canadienne d'urgence, la PCU, fournit 2 000 $ par mois pendant 16 semaines aux travailleurs qui ont cessé de travailler en raison de la pandémie. Plus de 7,28 millions de Canadiens ont déjà reçu leur prestation, qui représente un montant total de 24,25 milliards de dollars distribués. The Prime Minister recently also announced additional eligibility for the benefit. Individuals can now earn up to $1,000 per month while collecting the CERB. We also extended the benefit to seasonal workers who have exhausted their EI regular benefits and cannot undertake their usual seasonal work as a result of COVID-19, as well as to workers who have recently exhausted their EI regular benefits and are unable to find a job or return to work because of the pandemic. We value those frontline workers who have kept our country going through this crisis, from those working in our hospitals to those stocking our grocery shelves. This is why we are working with provinces and territories to cost share a temporary top-up to the salaries of low-income essential workers that they deemed essential in the fight against COVID-19. The Government of Canada will cover a significant portion of that cost. De plus, pour aider les entreprises à conserver leurs employés ou à les réembaucher et pour les aider à se préparer à la reprise, nous avons également introduit une subvention salariale pour les entreprises admissibles. We want employers to be able to keep their doors open and their employees working. This is why we have made available the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy at a rate of 75% of the first $58,700 normally earned by employees. This represents a benefit of up to $847 per week for the 12-week period from March 15th to June 6th, 2020. This emergency subsidy will help prevent job losses and encourage employers to rehire previously laid off as COVID-19. It is available to employers who have suffered a drop in gross revenues of at least 15% in March and 30% in April and May. And I'm very happy to say that application process was launched yesterday. Employers of all sizes and across all sectors of the economy, from small and medium-sized businesses to charities and not-for-profits, with the exception of public sector entities, are now eligible for this. Bakeries, movie theaters, hardware stores, you name it, if they have been significantly impacted by COVID-19, they are eligible. By being able to hold on to their employees, Canadian companies will be in a better position to bounce back after the crisis. We also have introduced a new Canada Emergency Business Account. We call it the CEBA. This program will provide support to eligible financial institutions so they can provide interest-free, partially forgivable loans of up to $40,000 to small businesses, including non-for-profits and charities. Nous avons également introduit le nouveau compte d'urgence pour les entreprises au Canada. Ce programme fournira un soutien aux institutions financières admissibles afin qu'elles puissent accorder des prêts sans intérêt et partiellement remboursables d'un montant maximal de 40 000 $ aux petites entreprises, y compris les organismes à but non lucratif. The program will be accessible to businesses that paid between $20,000 and $1.5 million in total payroll in 2019. As of last week, financial institutions, including the big banks and many credit unions, have already approved more than 313,000 loans and close to $9 billion in credit. And they're already in the hands of those small and medium businesses. Now, these loans are fully funded by the Government of Canada and administered by Export Development Canada with financial institutions. They will ensure that small businesses and not-for-profits have access to the capital they need at a 0% interest rate to pay for rent and other important costs over the next number of months. Also this week, the Canada Revenue Agency launched the online wage subsidy calculator to guide employers through a step-by-step calculation of the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy and enable them to determine the subsidy amount they can expect to claim based on the information that they enter into the calculator. The Prime Minister also announced a comprehensive package of measures that will help Canadian students and recent graduates get through this difficult economic times and position themselves for future success. These measures include the Canada Student Emergency Benefit, the Canada Student Service Grant, enhanced student assistance for the fall school year, and expanded youth employment and job skills programming. We also announced $75.2 million to provide additional distinctions-based support to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis post-secondary students. Nous avons dit que nous ferons tout ce qu'il faut pour protéger la santé et la sécurité des Canadiens, stabiliser l'économie et atténuer l'impact économique de la pandémie de la COVID-19, et c'est ce que nous faisons. In this unprecedented time, we will continue to carefully monitor all developments related to COVID-19 and work hard to ensure businesses get the support they need. Now, as a former business owner, I know how difficult it is to brace for this type of challenge. The measures the government is putting in place are meant to help as many Canadians as possible and as quickly as possible. We know that life during the pandemic continues to evolve. The immediate needs of Canadians are our priority. So I really want to thank you for your time and for the work you are doing in your community. The fact that you are sharing with us your different realities makes us make our programs better. And I'm hopeful that we will have that conversation also today, how we can continue to address some of the challenges that we have with our programs. And these are difficult times, but we can and we will get through it by working together. C'est une période difficile que nous vivons, mais nous pouvons et nous allons passer à travers ensemble. Alors, je vous remercie pour votre attention. Thank you for your attention. And I'm ready to answer questions and hear your ideas.
Great. So the first question is, where can we find an overview of the federal government's support measures for businesses?
So there's a website that is available. It's pretty easy, canada.ca/coronavirus, and you will be able to find all the different services and programs that are offered to individuals, to businesses, and to Canadians.
Great, thank you. And do businesses qualify for both the 75% wage subsidy and the 10% wage subsidy? And what is the application process?
So thank you for that question. Now, as you know, Canadians should be confident that their jobs are safe as we continue to fight against the global COVID-19 outbreak. That's why we passed the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, that's the 75% one, to support businesses that are hardest hit by the pandemic and also to protect the jobs. The subsidy will cover 75% of an employee's wages for employers of all sizes and across all sectors, including, as we mentioned, non-for-profits and charities. Now, this significant support will help employers keep their staff on payroll, rehire those previously laid off, and ensure workers can access a decent income and position themselves to rebound when this outbreak has passed. Employers who are not eligible for the CEWS may still qualify for the temporary 10% wage subsidy. And so the CEWS and the 10% temporary wage subsidy for employers are intended to provide total support of up to 75% of payroll. And the CEWS can be applied for online now via your Canada Revenue Agency My Business account. And we're also encouraging all employers to register for direct deposit to make it a process that is as seamless as possible and gets the money as fast as it can to your account.
Great. Is it going to take time for requests or applications to be fulfilled? And what can businesses do in the meantime to cushion the blows or tide them over until they can get financial reliefs being offered?
Well, that's a really, really good question. And honestly, we've been trying to get the money as quickly as we can to businesses. I know that it's important that now that the applications are open for the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, the payments should be sent within the next week. We're hopeful that that will happen. Also, I mentioned it earlier that there's the Canada Emergency Business Account, which offers the partially forgivable interest-free loans of up to $40,000 to cover operational costs. Employers have access to this by speaking directly to their financial institutions. And as I mentioned, many have been approved so far, so we're hopeful that that will continue and to make sure that the money is in the hands of businesses as soon as possible.
Okay. And is the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the $2,000 a month for 4 months, available to entrepreneurs?
So as you know, we really made something that was where we didn't want people to worry about paying the bills during this very difficult time. And by recognizing the urgency of the situation, the government took action to support workers and families with the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. Nearly 6 million Canadians are either self-employed or do not have enough hours of work to qualify for EI benefits. And this, therefore, is a benefit that will mean that workers, including self-employed, who are unable to work because of COVID, have the income support they need. If you have stopped working due to COVID-19 and have earned at least $5,000 in the last year, you can qualify for the CERB. And that's, we're inviting people to have access to it if you have the criteria that responds to it.
Okay. I've got a question from our online. So the first question is from Sean Barrett from Farm to Table. So you did speak towards making sure that food is on the table of Canadians, and I think this question relates well to that. So and this is Farm to Table in Northern Ontario. So is there or could there be funding that would allow small local farmers to achieve some kind of price parity with large factory farming operations or meat packers at the consumer level? I also received a similar question from Craig, speaking to grocery store chickens being about $10, and then a locally raised one would, maybe be twice the cost of that. And it does provide for some sticker shock to consumers. And they were wondering if there was some sort of funding available for that.
Well, that's a great question. And honestly, I will have to do a little bit of homework just to make sure that I guide these two entrepreneurs and give the right answer to that question. I know that the government has really invested in food banks and also trying to help the most vulnerable. So that part I am aware, but I will inquire and make sure that we find an answer that is going to let both entrepreneurs know what can be done during this very difficult time. Unless my colleagues, of course, Paul and Mark, you're always welcome to answer some of the questions if you have already been asking or receiving those questions.
Okay.
Well, I'll just add quickly, obviously we're trying to encourage, shop local. But and I, we've been aggressive, supporting farmers for shop local. There is a price discrepancy. I don't think we have anything like Mona was indicated. We'll have to take that back, that question. But obviously what we could do to support through FedNor, tourism, looking at how can we support our farmers for new technology, new equipment that will help. But obviously, I think in general, like I know many people that have contacted the office are a bit willing to pay a bit more for locally produced food. But I don't, at this point, like the minister said, we'll have to take that back to see if there's additional support that's maybe not COVID related, but we encourage a lot of people to shop local for sure.
Just to quickly add to that, Mark, I know that the question comes from Sean Barrett, so I want to say hi to Sean. And certainly I get my meat actually locally as much as I can from a farm actually in Mark's Riding in Lavigne. So most of my meat comes from there that we eat here at the house. But certainly that's also a question for agriculture. And so that's something we'll bring back to the Department of Agriculture that we work with as well. So it's a great question. And certainly as our world is changing and we're looking at how can we source more local produce and certainly meats, and how can the government play a role in supporting that? That's a very, very good question. It's really a great suggestion as well. I know that they've been having that conversation of food security across the country, and now with this pandemic, I think it just highlights how more important that is. So thanks for raising that, Sean, and we certainly will get that back to you, and also raise that with the Minister of Agriculture as well.
And to wrap up maybe with those two answers, I just want to mention that you probably heard me mention the fact that we're also putting a lot of effort in a made in Canada approach. As we know, we have to demonstrate that many of our services and products have to be enhanced, and we even have to kind of change our businesses here in Canada to provide the needs. So that will also be part of the answer, I believe Sean has raised, which is a really good one.
Great, thank you all for your answers to that question. The next question is actually a fairly simple one. So what is the tax bracket for middle class prosperity? It's a simple question, maybe not a simple answer.
At this time, I think that we are really focusing on making sure that Canadians have access to some income to pay their bills. And we really want to concentrate on making sure that job security when we go back to normal is available to all Canadians. So I would answer the way that we want to provide services and support for all Canadians.
Okay. Thank you. So what is the timeline for a return to normal, and what priorities does the government intend to address?
Well, that's everybody's question right now. I think it's really important that we get our economy going, but as you know, we will have to do this in phases. We're still in an emergency response position at this time. And even though a lot of people are starting to talk about recovery, we still need to make sure that right now we can provide supports to Canadians and workers. But I still want to address the fact that we are having ongoing discussions with provinces, territories, even municipalities about what that will look like. And reopening our economy requires a coordinated approach because different parts of the country are at different points in the fight against COVID. And we all know that there are significant risks to lifting our public health measures, and we will continue to listen to the advice of experts, and we'll keep working with our provincial and territorial partners every step of the way. So I believe that return to maybe a new normal is what we are going to be looking at, but we have to really make sure it's a coordinated approach. And I know with my conversations with Mayor Bigger and also with provincial elected officials, we are trying to find the best way to work together to help going back to some type of recovery when we're there.
Great. So you spoke to the new normal. So we've heard a variety of different politicians state that things will never go back to what they were, and that we'll be dealing with a new normal. So what specifically will the characteristics of the new normal be? And as we look to the future and begin thinking about rebuilding our economy, it provides an opportunity to improve upon the past and make improvements going forward. One of the biggest impediments to the business community is Canada's regulatory system, which is a mix of complex and overlapping rules from all levels of government that has created a costly and uncertain environment to run our business. This would be a prime time for the government to undertake a complete overhaul of these outdated rules and regulations. Do you have any comment to that?
Well, I think it's a conversation that I agree we need to have. Unfortunately, I don't have that crystal ball telling us what will the next phases look like. But I can tell you, though, that as I mentioned before, as we go on getting our economy back and moving, we will have to do it in phases. And there's going to be a coordinated approach with, as I mentioned, provinces, the territories, the municipalities, and even with businesses. And we have to just make sure that we do it diligently. And also we realize that until we have a vaccine, we will have to deliver different products, services, and it will be different. Now, I'm hopeful that we will be able to give more news about this very soon. We know that the province of Ontario laid out their plan of recovery, but with no dates yet. And that's why we need to coordinate that approach. And to start those conversations on what will it look like? What will job security look like in the next phases? How are we going to make sure that Canadians have the necessary essential needs to continue to provide for their families, for the seniors and caregivers? So we are having that conversation. And I'm hopeful that even members of the Sudbury Chamber of Commerce will contribute to those questions that we need to raise in these very difficult times. I'm not sure if Mark or Paul want to add, as you know your reality in Sudbury, that we need to make sure we don't forget about that reality.
Thank you, Minister. I'll just add to the that part of that question with respect to the regulations in Canada with the different levels of government, municipal, provincial, and federal. So whoever obviously provided that question to you, Neil, I'm more than happy to engage in discussions as to what specifics that they're looking at, and obviously with suggestions that they have. I know there's been on the federal side, provincial side, across the country, obviously red tape commissions of how to reduce that. And certainly there have been improvements, but there's always more that we can do, and certainly listen. That's why this is an opportunity to feedback those concerns to us. And I'm more than happy, given my tax law background, as we know, the income tax is about this thick. Actually, I have a copy in the back there if anyone wants to look at it. So, and then we keep adding to it. And I know that that's how more of the regulations that we're talking about. So more than happy to engage, Neil, if you want to share that individual's contact information.
Okay, we'll follow up with you with that for sure, Paul. Thank you. Sean has a follow-up question. So restaurants are already suffering and will be significantly behind the 8 ball when we reopen in the post-COVID economy. Can we provide funding that, again, would allow farmers to sell their goods for less without earning less and connect farmers directly with restaurants? This would provide stability for farmers and local ingredients for restaurants. And I think this goes back to the securing our food supply and local.
And I believe Sean is really raising a very important question and something that we should be looking at. I'm sure Paul and Mark and I will try to find those answers, but also maybe share the reality of Sean's idea and how that could maybe be a benefit across the country to help with our food supply, understand how we make sure that people have access to food in less costs, if possible. It is a question we need to look at, and unfortunately, I don't have the whole answer today, but I think it's a really good conversation that we need to have. And we should take that into consideration. And even if we have a chance, maybe have a longer chat with Sean to really hear his ideas, because there might be something there that other communities could benefit from.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Carolyn Berdua from Radio Canada. And so in the spirit of linguistic duality, she would like you to answer this question in French. However, I'm not going to embarrass myself with my grade 13 French, so I'm going to ask the question in English, okay? So it's a bit of a repeat, but how do you define what is the new normal for small businesses in Sudbury after COVID-19? Answer in French, please.
Ben, merci, Caroline, pour ta question. Je pense qu'elle est vraiment importante. Puis, je dirais qu'à ce moment-ci, étant donné que notre économie, à mesure qu'elle va avancer, il va falloir y arriver en différentes phases. Et en plus, il va falloir que ce soit une approche qui est coordonnée avec les provinces, les territoires, de qu'est-ce que ça va avoir de l'air, notre nouvelle normalité, comme on dit. Ouvrir ou réouvrir notre économie, comme je mentionne, va devoir être coordonné. Il va falloir que ça se passe dépendant où nous sommes à travers le pays, parce qu'on sait que la réalité, elle est différente à travers le pays. Et aussi, il va falloir prendre en considération le fait que notre système de santé publique, on a encore des mesures très importantes à prendre pour protéger la santé, la sécurité des Canadiens. Donc, il va falloir qu'on prenne l'avis des experts et, entre autres, les agences publiques ou l'Agence publique du Canada pour qu'on continue à chaque étape à s'assurer que cette priorité de protéger la santé et la sécurité des Canadiens en soit la première et ensuite qu'on puisse développer les mesures à développer pour revenir dans une économie qui va être, on le sait, différente jusqu'au moment qu'on va avoir un vaccin. Donc, la conversation doit se faire. Puis, je pense que je l'ai mentionné, mais je veux juste le répéter, cette coordination se fait avec les provinces, les territoires, mais également les municipalités, parce que ça va être très important qu'on puisse le faire ensemble. Et puis, c'est ce qu'on fait depuis le début, vraiment cette coordination ensemble. J'espère que ça répond à la question.
Great. Mark and Paul, if you could also speak to that in French as well, please.
Oui, bien, c'est Marc. Si, définitivement, comme le ministre a indiqué, avant qu'on ait un vaccin ici, lorsqu'on regarde le Nord, puis évidemment, on regarde le Nord, Sudbury, à cause de la population, c'est un peu différent de Toronto. Alors, j'espère que lorsqu'on va regarder à le dialogue national au niveau de la province, au niveau des municipalités, la prochaine année, avec qu'on ait un vaccin, qu'on regarde aussi les différences que nous avons ici dans le Nord, contrairement aux gros centres comme Toronto. Alors, je pense que c'est vraiment important de regarder une variance qui existe. Mais par exemple, la conversation que nous avons, comme c'est là avec la Chambre de commerce, la conversation que nous allons avoir avec les membres de Chambre, avec Paul, tout le reste de la communauté, c'est important, mais je pense qu'il est un peu prématuré. Il faut concentrer, comme c'est là, de garder le virus, de ne pas avoir une deuxième vague, comme il mentionne, de faire certain que nous pouvons commencer à travailler avec le domaine de la santé publique pour s'assurer que nous avons contrôle sur le virus local et ensuite nous pouvons réouvrir d'une façon graduelle les entreprises, mais en considérant le point que nous sommes un peu différents d'un gros centre comme Toronto. Puis j'espère que la province va regarder avec le fédéral, en partenariat avec les municipalités, cette variance-là.
Paul, voulais-tu rajouter quelque chose?
He's frozen there.
Oui, merci Caroline pour la question. Juste vite fait, c'est clair que, comme la ministre a dit, puis Marc a renchéri, on est dans des temps tu veux dire, c'est pas clair où est-ce qu'on s'en va, mais en même temps, on met toutes les mesures en place pour garder la communauté en santé, puis les mesures en place pour garder, comme la ministre a mentionné au début, vraiment des fonds dans leur poche pour qu'ils me mettent du manger sur leur table et également avoir le toit par-dessus leur tête. Ça, c'était en premier lieu, ce qui était le plus important. Maintenant, quand on parle de l'économie et de relancer l'économie, comme on sait, il y a des différentes réalités, comme Marc a mentionné, dans le nord de l'Ontario versus le sud, au Québec, différentes provinces sont en différentes places. Donc, il n'y a pas une approche standard pour tout le monde au Canada. Ça étant dit, il faut au moins avoir peut-être les mêmes paramètres. C'est ça un peu que les conversations qu'il y a eu entre le bureau du premier ministre et les différents leaders de chaque province. La semaine dernière, c'est qu'on commence à voir cette conversation-là. Mais à fur et à mesure qu'on avance, il faut, comme Marc a mentionné, c'est la santé et la sécurité des gens en premier lieu. Puis la dernière chose qu'on veut, c'est une deuxième vague, parce qu'à mon avis, ça serait dévastateur pour l'économie s'il y a une deuxième vague qui arrive, puis il faut refermer l'économie encore. Donc, toutes les mesures en place en ce moment, c'est de prévoir et en même temps regarder qu'est-ce que ça va de l'air. Comme c'est clair que le testing, comme on dit, et en anglais, il dit le contact tracing, ça devient très, très important. Puis également avoir les morceaux d'équipement pour se protéger personnellement, les PPE, comme l'acronyme qu'on utilise en anglais. Donc, c'est toutes des choses que la nouvelle réalité, il faut apprendre comment vivre avec ce virus-là autour de nous jusqu'à temps qu'on trouve un vaccin. Donc, c'est ça que ça va être la réalité dans cette phase entre ici et quand on trouve un vaccin pour ce virus.
Puis je vais juste rajouter, parce que vous m'avez fait penser, Marc et Paul, au fait que ce qui est quand même incroyable depuis le début de cette crise, c'est que plusieurs entreprises ont vraiment adapté et ont changé leur façon de faire pour pouvoir répondre aux besoins qu'on avait, soit au niveau de la santé ou au niveau de la sécurité des Canadiens. Je pense à des entreprises ou microbrasseries qui ont changé de la production à la bière à de la production pour les savons et les sanitizers, je ne sais pas pourquoi, je ne sais pas en français, mais c'est fascinant de voir qu'il y a eu vraiment beaucoup d'innovation et je pense que c'est quelque chose qu'il va falloir continuer à voir à travers le pays. On veut également faire un fait au Canada, une approche qui est fait au Canada parce qu'on va avoir besoin de vraiment rallier nos entrepreneurs, nos entreprises pour pouvoir justement livrer ces besoins-là. Donc, je voudrais mentionner que c'est assez exceptionnel de voir la force des entreprises qui ont vraiment pour plusieurs emboîté le pas pour aider à répondre à la réponse COVID. Et ça, c'est quelque chose qu'on va être obligé de regarder dans le retour à l'économie où plusieurs entreprises vont peut-être devoir changer leur façon de faire pour répondre à ce nouveau besoin.
Thank you. All right, now the next question. Our national chamber, the Canadian Chamber, has called for an overhaul of the tax system, which hasn't been comprehensively reviewed since the 1960s. As Associate Minister of Finance, can you discuss whether this is on the government's agenda?
What a great question. I think that is something that has been really raised in the past years, and it is still something that we will have to look at, I think, in the next phases as we go along. Again, at this time, as you probably have seen, the government has really focused on the emergency response. And we have developed over 10 different programs for the economic measures. And we're really focusing on helping Canadians now. And when we are done this, let's say this phase and implementing those measures and making sure Canadians get that money, then we will have to have a conversation on what will be next. And I believe that everything should be on the table. So I don't have a specific response on what exactly the agenda will be, but I believe that we across the world have now a new reality that we have to look at. And that should be also on the table to discuss and to see how we're gonna move forward with our economy.
Yeah. The next question is online. So if a small business owner isn't eligible for the $40,000 loans and they aren't eligible for rent relief because they own their own commercial buildings, is there any sort of property tax relief being considered by the government for those situations where tenants refuse to pay rent and LTBO isn't doing any evictions? If not, what other options would be available to people in that situation?
What a great question and a very specific reality. I think that we're really trying not only on the federal side, but I know the province is also addressing this issue and municipalities also have been addressing this issue. I would really encourage this entrepreneur to speak with their local financial institution to see if there are other ways of being able to be supported. And if they want to also maybe raise that question, not only with me, but also with Paul or Mark, so we can look at what other supports, if there is any, that we can provide to this entrepreneur.
Okay, thank you.
And again, if I may, as you know, and I mentioned it, and we have been creating, developing, and delivering the programs as we speak. Usually it takes between sometimes 6 months to a year just to think about it. And now we're really pushing that. So as was mentioned at the beginning by Paul, your advocacy in the past 6 weeks since the beginning of this COVID crisis has been immensely useful in addressing and making eligibility better for most of you. So we know at the beginning, we started, for example, with the 10% wage subsidy, and then we understood by all chambers of commerce across the country that we needed to fix that. It would not be enough. And that's when we arrived with the Canadian Emergency Wage Subsidy benefit, which came to the 75%. That is because we listened to Canadians across the country, and also the advocacy coming from not only the Sudbury Chamber of Commerce, but also with Paul and Mark talking with all of you. So this is what we've been doing in the past 6 weeks, really focusing on how can we make those eligibility work for some that fall through the cracks. And we will continue to do that. That's why today's conversation is so important.
Thank you. What lessons has the government learned from this pandemic experience, and how will our country and our business community be different moving forward?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think that right now, as I've been mentioning, we've been gathering all those information. We've also been looking at what other countries are doing to try to see how we can best address the realities across our country, and also work with the provinces, the municipalities, and also, as we mentioned, the Chamber of Commerce, to see what works and what doesn't work. I believe that we will need to do a very focused evaluation after this, and to look at what else we can really think about for future thinking. I would say that at this time, as we are doing an emergency response approach, honestly, we are focusing on what works, what doesn't work, and to fix it. But I agree, this is something that across the world, we will need to look at what will be the next phases, and to work together to provide sustainability in our economy.
Great. Paul, Mark, do you want to comment on that?
I was going to ask them, yeah.
Is that a yes, no? Yes, Mark?
Getting the unmute. No, obviously, I think Mona captured, Minister Fortier captured it good in a sense. And again, locally, we have to really try and work together. And we've been doing this, like the last virtual chamber meeting, you had the mayor of Greater Sudbury, you had 2 MPs, you had 2 MPPs, and the chamber involved in trying to find different solutions moving forward. I'll switch it back over to the chamber for all the work that the chamber has done over the years to be the voice of business in Greater Sudbury. You've done a fantastic job to make sure that you keep the pressure on us federally, and also moving forward with local businesses, the angle of the health. It'll be very important to see how that component kicks in as far as when we get a vaccine and we get the economy rolling, because we got to get the economy rolling, but we got to do it in a planned approach and working closely with the province. So I agree with everything that the minister said, obviously, and these questions are something that we have to continue advocacy. So please make sure that businesses here give the voices back, your questions back to my office, to Paul's office here locally, so that we can make sure that we bring those concerns and we work together to make sure we reopen the economy and make a difference here. So thank you, Merci.
Thank you, Mark. On that same note, certainly it's been an all hands on deck approach since the beginning of this. And again, and that's why at the beginning, I thank the minister and cabinet to really being open to the MPs. Actually, the other thing that we don't mention is actually the ministers and their offices are actually reaching to opposition MPs as well. So there've been a lot of feedback from all members of parliament. And I know on a weekly basis, they're actually, the prime minister's talking to the premiers of all the provinces. So coming up with these different solutions, obviously we've had a really good rapport, and certainly lines of communication have been awesome with our own government, and at the same time in the opposition as well. So I think that's where we're learning about we're in this pandemic and in this crisis. In Canada, I think that we are trying to move ahead with basically everybody rowing in the same direction. And I think in general, we're seeing a really positive results because of that. And so just go back to the question as to what else is out there. And I'll go back to what the minister said. Obviously, his or hers financial institution, as well as the wage subsidy. There's a numerous programs out there. Go also talk to your accountant. They're very aware of all the programs that are out there too. But just to go back again, it's been for us every day at 5:30 we speak with, actually there's a caucus call between all Liberal MPs from across the country, and we're feeding back what we're hearing on a daily basis. We feed it back, it goes to the team, and then it goes to different departments to get answers that we relay back to the people on the ground. And if we don't have an answer, or certainly we haven't that solution, at least we're aware of that gap. And since the beginning, it's been creating these policies, these public policies, these programs, and then determining what are the gaps that are in there, how do we fix the gaps. This is, since day one, it has not been about perfect policy. It's about basically helping people right away as much as we can, and then making the fixes as we go, or else we would have never been where we are right now and getting all these different programs that 2 months ago, nobody that hadn't even been imagined by public service, which is an historic day, a moment in Canada's history that it can be done. But I'm sure that once we're through this, we won't want to do it again, but we'll learn the lessons from it.
And just to conclude on that, because it made me think that there are some, highlighted some of the key issues that even all level of government realize that we really need to carefully examine together. And, the question of how we are going to care for the elderly, that is something we really need to focus on. How we value a strong, well-resourced and universally accessible healthcare system. The important role of schools and caregivers in our society, mentioning also the structure of our social welfare systems and how we support the most vulnerable. We mentioned earlier today, but how are we going to construct and manage our supply chains, and also how we value or we place well-being and quality of life, and in addition of the traditional aspects of economic growth. So those are all things that we're going to have to integrate in our approach, and to make sure that it ensures that our future growth improves the lives and generates prosperity for all Canadians, and especially, of course, people in Sudbury region.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time, everyone, and to be respectful of everyone's time, because I know we all have to be at the day of mourning ceremony in 3 minutes. I'd like to thank Minister Fortier, along with MP Paul Lefebvre and MP Marc Serre, for joining us today, answering questions and providing some guidance during this difficult time. I would also like to thank all of our attendees for their participation. We hope you found this webinar helpful. If you have any questions about how the Chamber can assist you and your business, please don't hesitate to reach out to one of our staff. Their email addresses can be found on our website. The Chamber has developed a COVID-19 resource page on our website to help inform you during this crisis. Visit our website at sudburychamber.ca to learn more. Please watch our social media feeds for more webinar topics in the upcoming weeks. On behalf of the Chamber, thank you for joining us and for your continued support.
Merci tout le monde. Bonne journée. Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Merci, Madame la Ministre.
Bye.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.